Greetings, friends. Welcome to another one of our free community classes, which usually come out every Friday. This one's dropping a day late because computer issues out of my control. But here we are, continuing our ongoing discussion about the various tools that we might bring into our work with the plant spirits. Now, I bring this up relatively often, but I think it's an important point so people have some frame of reference because not everybody watches every video, but a lot of my personal perspective, the way that I engage with the world around me, the way that I engage with the plant spirits, and the framework on which I hang most of my spirituality comes from the extant Indo-European traditions, and specifically through a lens of modern neo-pagan druidry. So I'm excited on that note to talk about today's tool, which is the blade. The blade holds a position of great import in a lot of sorcerous and magical traditions. You have the athame of witchcraft and swords and all of that. In my particular practice, outside of utilitarian work, which generally takes the shape of a box cutter, this is the only blade that I work with. And for me, the sickle or boline or curved blade is not only a tool that has practical applications, but also very symbolic ones, to the extent that this particular blade is displayed openly on my shrine throughout the year. It's the only sharp object that I keep unsheathed, but the way that it's displayed makes sense in my work and is important for the kind of energy and the kind of mindset that I like to hold when I am approaching my allies of spirit. So the boline or the sickle or the curved blade is, as the name implies, a blade with a lunar shape, and I really appreciate this particular shape of blade because it harkens to the moon. And one thing that I like to sort of meditate on with this particular blade is the waxing and waning of the moon, that there is this constant breath that happens within nature, an exhalation, a pause, an inhalation, a pause, returning back to an exhalation, that everything is in a constant cyclical dance. Everything is always moving and participating in the generation of cosmos. And so the moon, as an ally that goes through their life cycle or their life dance once every month, makes it really easy for us to tap in. And I've done a couple classes before on aligning to the tides and some blog posts on my website, how important it is to acknowledge these small and big cycles within nature and try to live in harmony with them as a way to participate in the generation of cosmos. And so the shape of these blades being lunar, I really appreciate, because it reminds me that everything is a process, that everything is cyclical, that when we are doing blade work, there is an opposite or a complementary polarity to that work. And for this particular style of blade, generally comes up at the time of harvest, which is why I wanted to talk about this now, because we are very much in harvest season. We're very much at the time of year when this blade is getting some miles put on it. So this blade is very much a harvesting tool intended to cut plants, to separate seed from stem and all of that. This is a relatively fancy one, and one that I don't use out in the garden or out in nature. This is more of a symbolic tool and one that plays into the mysteries that I celebrate. But you can see, quite clearly that shape, and this one has a serrated side and a sharp side for cutting plant material. Very effective, kind of easy to get in there and saw, to cut away from oneself for safety, especially when you're me. And so there is very much a connotation with this particular blade and this particular blade type of death, of surrender, of releasing oneself back into the land, of plants being felled, ending their life cycle and being cut in order to preserve the life of us human folk in the form of food or medicine or fiber or shelter or fuel, and their bodies or their spirits being returned into the earth to move through that passage back into the green realm, into the world of spirit, where they will rest only to return again next spring. And this is part of the deep mystery of this blade for me. Again, the lunar symbol reminding that every dark moon leads to a full moon, that every harvest time leads to a springtime, that every death leads to a birth, and all of that. That hidden within the harvest, within the culling, the cutting, the sacrifice, is a response from the cosmos, is the response to death is birth. The response to sacrifice is blessing. So there's a lot of symbolism in this particular blade, and keeping it, for me personally, keeping this on my shrine is a reminder, that when life feels like this, there is a response to that doesn't feel like that. There is a softer, there is a warmth of the summer sun in a response to the cold, dark winter days. So it is a meditation on, I guess, faith to a certain degree, and hope, and also a reminder that what we do, what actions we take, become the seeds for what grows in the seasons ahead. That how we contribute to either the cosmos or the chaos very much defines the experiences that we have. So probably not the direction you thought we were going to go talking about this blade, but this is an ancient symbol. Of course, we have the extant stories of the Druids working with a carved blade, a curved blade, to harvest sacred plants like mistletoe and vervain, and this having very much a sacred role in initiations, possibly even being held to somebody's neck to ensure that whatever oaths they take, they will hold. Most of the stories about the Druids speak about them working ritually and practically with a gold sickle, which I don't know if I think the blade was actually gold. I think it's more likely the blade was golden in maybe bronze or copper. And so here, this is my working boline, my working blade. It's got a hawthorn wood handle and a hand-forged bronze blade, which is not very sharp. So this has more of a ritual application for me than practical, although I have successfully been able to harvest some sacred plants with this. It's not very sharp, which is good because it allows me to work in a more ritual context with this blade with less fear of getting cut, which I do all the time. So a little on the clumsy side. So the ritual blade, the applications of harvest, the applications of participating in the felling time, and the faith that all things that are laid into the soil will return in due time in whatever form that takes. And of course, the practical application of working with these tools to carve, to whittle, to inscribe is very powerful. So hopefully a little bit of insight into one of my favorite tools. If you work with a blade in your own practice, especially in relationship to plants, if you have a special blade or special pruning shears that you use season after season, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. If you're interested in more of this content, courses, advanced classes, come join us over on Patreon, and I will see you next time.